So, episode 5 was very, very emotional, and I'm going to try my best not to cry. I'm not going to cry through this little review. Now, start at the beginning of the episode. There's a flashback. We stop doing those little prologue things. We just go straight into title sequence, then onto like a little flashback, which is something we did last week. So I don't think we're going to get any more of those little prologues at the beginning anymore. So we start off with a flashback to when the citizens of the town took the town back from the Fedra. The Fedra is also like a governing body that sort of takes over these areas and stuff. And we saw that. Now, that was very, very violent. Like the riots that happened, you see people getting beaten to death in the street, a guy gets hung and all stuff like that. It was pretty violent, but these takeovers normally are. And some of it, like at the very beginning of it, it was kind of like the protest, the anti-COVID protests and sort of Black Lives Matter protests. But then they sort of took it up a notch, and it became like real intense. You saw people beaten, and it was not a very nice thing to watch. So anyway, then we sort of see they've taken over, and then we see that Kathleen has got all of the conspirators, all the ones that sort of like will give you information, and they refer to them as rats. Like I'm from London, so we refer to them as grasses. That's the different thing. So if you're a grass, you're sort of a snitch or a narc or whatever you want to call it, but they're calling them rats. Um, so they've been sort of like dropping names to the federal government and like dobbing people in, like dobbing their neighbours in, just to get like privilege. So they'll get like treats or they'll get cheese or something like that. They kept saying just information on medicine. So we see Kathleen with these conspirators, and she sort of got them all pinned down in this little room, and she's asking where Henry is because she's desperate to get Henry. And they sort of turn the guns on them, and then one of them sort of caves in and says, "Look, Henry's with the doctor." And we saw in the previous episode, obviously, she shoots and kills the doctor. So we're getting a flash. We're going back only sort of like, I think it's like 10 days back. We also saw Henry at the beginning of the episode with his deaf brother. Obviously, we saw him at the end of the last episode holding guns to Joel's head and Eddie's head. We see from this that Kathleen is obsessed with getting Henry. We saw that in the previous episode, but we're seeing it more now. She's obsessed with getting this man. After they give her all the information, she signals her men to kill all of the conspirators. And yeah, that's sort of where we leave them, and then we sort of go back to Henry with the doctor, and the doctor's helping him find a hiding place, and he's giving him food. So I've got lots of notes to get through on this one. So then a bit of time passes, a couple of days pass, and the doctor hasn't come back, and Henry kind of works out that the doctor has been got, he's probably been killed, they're not going to get any more food, and Henry and his brother Sam are now running out of food, which is quite bad. Obviously, Sam is deaf, so he's communicating via sign language, and he's got this like little notepad that he writes on as well, which is quite cute. Obviously, Henry needs to make a choice. He needs to know whether or not to leave, and he decides like we've got to go, we've got to leave. First, he tries to hold off the fact they want to leave. Then he's like, no, we've got to go, we've got to shoot off, we have to get out of here. Which is probably the best plan because they can't sit there and starve. Plus, they're all looking for him like that, so they're going to turn up at his house. This little militia that they've got going on, they're going to turn up at the house. They're going to take him down. So as like what Henry does is to try and make Sam feel brave about trying to like get through the city. He paints this like superhero mask on him. I thought it was real sweet, real touching. So even though he's his brother, it's like a proper father-son sort of relationship with those two. So he paints on the superhero stuff, and Sam and Henry sort of like make their escape. As they're leaving the building, they hear a car crash, and they see what we saw in the previous episodes when Joel and Eddie crash, which is it's funny to see it from a different angle because Henry looks at Joel like taking down like all the bad like the militia guys, and he's quite skillful at it. And he instantly thinks that's someone who can help me. He also sees the fact he's got like what he believes to be his daughter with him, so he thinks that's another link there. That's saying like two people with children. It's going to be a better sort of team to be with. So he decides to go hunt down and find Joel. and asked him for help. So that's where we sort of lead us straight into the next episode, which is the end of episode 4, where we see Ellie sort of waking Joe up with the gun stuck to her head. So you sort of get this moment where Joel's sort of laying there. He's got the boy pointing the gun at him, and Ellie's got the gun to her. And Henry straight away says, like, I don't want to do this. I just want your help. I need your help. And I think you need us too. We can work together. I'm not here to be violent. I just want to, I will put the guns down. And like Joel does this really funny bit where he's sort of like, yeah, okay. And it's the way he delivers it. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to kill you. Don't worry about it, sort of thing. And Ellie's just like, oh my God, like, because she can't believe Joel said it in that way. And then he's like, we're okay. And she does it again. And she's just like, oh, for Christ's sake, like, why can't you like make it like we're actually going to help these people? You actually just sound like you want to kill them. And in the end, like Joel sort of goes, okay, like, I've got no choice. They both put their guns down and they stop and they kind of like share a meal together of food, and they sort of come up with sort of idea that they want to sort of, like Henry says to Joel, like, I can get you out of the city, but I know the way out. You don't know the way out, but I know the way out. So I can help you in that way. And they kind of need each other's skill set, because obviously with that knowledge of Henry has with the city, and Joel's got the knowledge of how to survive and how to sort of generally be a badass really, and he's like a tough guy. So, and Henry sort of admits that I can't do any of that stuff. So they sort of desperately need each other. And you start to see a little friendship sort of building between Ellie and Sam as well. See, I know Ellie's a bit older than Sam, but there's like, they're both kids still in this world, and they sort of funny find another kid and they start to interact like children do. And I think that's brilliant. And I really like that. Right. So they make this plan that they're going to head through the tunnels. Now, Henry has heard from one when he was informing on the feds, one of the Federer people had told him that what they'd done is they chased all of the clickers down into the tunnels, and apparently according to him they got rid of them all from the tunnels, but the people up top don't know this. Only Henry knows this because he learned it from the Federer people. Now, so the plan is they're going to go through the tunnels to get out of the town. And Joel's already like, that's a stupid idea. Like, there's infected down there, but like Henry assures him there's no infected down there. The infected have gone. Now, again, in that previous episode, we saw that floor that was caving in a bit. So my first thoughts were, they ain't gone. But anyway, so we move on a bit more. Oh, right. So they basically go down into these tunnels, and they're cruising through the tunnels, and they suddenly come across this, like, they've got children's paintings of like a castle on the walls and rainbows and stuff like that, and there's a doorway. And Sam goes to enter the door, and Joel's like, no. And you've got that whole like protective father, but also like wise to the world sort of moment where he's like, no, like to him. And then Joel goes through the door first, and it's basically what looks like a nursery setup or a school underground. And Joel says that people did try and go under the ground, like when the infection started, to get away from the infection, but usually they didn't follow the rules, and the infection got down there and wiped them all out, which is obviously what's happened here. But you've got the two kids sitting in this like classroom, and they start to like interact with the sort of the environments and play with toys and stuff. And it's quite a nice moment because obviously these kids haven't had that. They've been stuck in this post-apocalyptic world. It's a harsh environment all their lives. And then they've sort of got this little area now where they can sort of be kids, something that probably Sam's probably never had, because obviously we know that this outbreak's gone on for a couple of decades, and Ellie also wouldn't have had that either. And they've both been sort of reared in this harsh world, but they've suddenly got a little glimpse of what it was like before. So they sit down, they start playing football and stuff like that. They sort of have a nice little colouring competition and play. And Joel and sort of and Henry sort of interact with each other a bit. And then you get this real nice moment where Ellie and Sam are talking about this comic book, and the sort of this what is it, survive and endure sort of phrase keeps coming up. Endure and survive or something like that. I've written it down somewhere, I can't find where I've written it down. But yeah, so they sort of have this like real tight bonding moment. You can see they're sort of building this little friendship and they're giggling together, and it's real sweet. I think just before that scene happened, I think we sort of forgot to mention there's a bit where Joel finds out that Henry had grassed up, and obviously Joel, I suppose if Joel stayed in Boston where he was, he would eventually been part of an uprising there. And I do believe that would have been like the case. So obviously Joel isn't a grass at all. So when he finds out Henry's a grass, he actually says, I don't work with rats. So that kind of puts him kind of a separate little bit of thing. But then when we went into the schoolroom, Henry explains why he was ratting out. It because Sam got ill with leukemia and he needed the medicine. The only way he could get the medicine was by ratting out someone. And when he explains who he ratted out, which is Kathleen's brother, and it turns out he was a really nice guy. He was protecting people. He was kind of sort of, before the uprising, he was kind of like keeping everyone sort of calm and sort of trying to build together sort of an uprising himself, but doing it in a peaceful way. Kind of sort of like, I suppose, like a Martin Luther King style sort of thing, where he's trying to do it all peacefully, or Gandhi sort of. They want to break through this oppression, but they're trying to do it peacefully. And then Henry obviously gives out his location, and the Federer people get him, kill him, and that obviously sends Kathleen, like, she's like, this isn't going to work. So she obviously goes the violent way and takes the town back, which later on we obviously see a conversation with her and her sort of like second in command, and he says to her, like, we loved your brother, but you made change. And that kind of like is the whole thing with Kathleen, that she even says in that point, like, my brother would not have wanted this. He wouldn't have agreed to this. And she's very sort of like bit down on that. That's when the second says, look, you made change though. You did this for us. Now we're free because of you. So it's kind of the sort of two ends of the story. Yes, Kathleen is evil, nasty, but she has freed those people from that oppression. So you can understand why they love her and why they're going to follow her into death, basically. So yeah, it was endure and survive. I've got it written down here. Yeah, so the comic book phrase is endure and survive, which becomes the sort of like, it's almost the motto of the whole world in this world, really. You've got to endure what you're doing to survive. So Joel kind of accepts why Henry had grassed up this guy and understands the reason behind it, because there's a line in this that is brilliant, where, because earlier on as they're walking through the tunnels, Henry says about saying about Joel's daughter, like says, oh, your dad, that's it, yeah, your dad, and then they both say, he's not my dad, she's not my dad, or she's not my daughter, and all that sort of stuff at the same time. Later on, we sort of, when it's in the classroom, he says, I know she's not your daughter, but I know you're not her father, but you were someone. So he's obviously clocked that Joel has a very strong parental sort of way of being. And that, again, that was like, and Joel sort of looks at him and then looks at her, and it's that, you can see it coming together. Like, the relationship between Joel and Ellie is definitely coming together. And there's that whole want to protect, that obviously from the last episode as well, where he wants to protect her from this sort of like violent, horrible world, and doesn't want her to sort of become like him. So they escape. They basically have this time in this little room, and they sort of leave. They follow through the rest of the tunnel, and they come out on the other side, and they're kind of on the edge of town. I think they're seeing like the town border, that the sort of the township people, the sort of militia, won't follow them across the river. That's where there's a bridge across the river. So they sort of come out into like suburbs, the suburbs part of the town, and they're sort of on their way, walking through the streets, and they're basically discussing how they've almost finished, and then Ellie says to them, like, oh, we're going to, I think, where are they going, Atlanta or something? I can't remember where they're going now, but we're going there. Do you want to come with us? And with that, Joel instantly like looks at her like to shut her up, and she's like, what? And then she does this funny thing where she's like, well, this is what happens all the time. Joel says no, then I keep on and on and on until he eventually says yes. And as she's about to deliver that, and he eventually says yeah, and then that's when a sniper shots at the sort of group, and there's a sniper shooting at them, and they sort of duck behind a car, and every time they go to move, the sniper shoots. And Joel says the guy's got a bad aim, so his plan is to sneak around the back, take out the sniper, so they can all sort of move on. So they're sitting there behind the car. Joel sort of does this. The sniper tries to shoot him a couple of times, completely misses him. Joel gets around the back, goes up the stairs, and confronts the sniper, who is an old man sitting there, like a old man, and he's got the gun like this. Joel's behind him and got the gun pointed at him, and this is a proper samurai. It's where you can see Joel is a reformed character, because he mentions, there's a part earlier on which I forgot to mention again. So I've got notes. I keep missing bits. There's a part earlier on where Joel is talking about like hurting people, and Ellie says to him, have you killed innocent people? And he doesn't answer the question, because we know Joel's got a dark past. And that echoes back to Tess saying to Joel, just before she died, you need to get her to the place she needs to get to, because we need to fix what we've done in this world. We need to put things right. The bad stuff that we've done, we need to put right. And that was a big part of like Tess wanting to get Ellie to the Fireflies to try and cure the world and fix the world, like the way of giving back from what they've taken by being horrible and stuff. So we've got Joel standing there with this old man. He's got the gun pointed at him, and he says to the man, "Don't do it. Just put the gun down, wait an hour, and then do what you got to do. But do that." And like he's got the gun in him, and the man's got the gun. And the man starts to tell him, he's like, "Don't do it. Please don't do it. I'm begging you, don't do it." And then sort of the camera cuts away, and you just hear a gunshot, and it goes back, and the old man's dead on the floor. So Joel's obviously had to shoot him. Joel then goes to sort of look around the room, and then he hears the radio that the old man has actually radioed ahead to Kathleen and told them that Joel and Henry and Sam and Ellie are already there. So they're on their way, because Joel hears the message from the radio saying they're on their way. And then what follows here is one of the most intense bits of TV I have seen in a long time. I was on the edge of my seat for probably the next 15 minutes of like my heart racing, sort of the adrenaline pumping. And I was watching this with my girlfriend as well, Laura, and she was the same. Like she was like jumping, like getting tensed up, and like she kept saying, "Oh my god, are you going to be okay?" Because it really got you. This is a part of the show that really pulled you in, that you did not want to leave, that your eyes did not want to leave the screen, and you were desperate to see what happens. So Joel then shouts, "Run!" And with that, you see the militia lot turning up. And they've got one of those trucks with the sort of snow plow on it to plow through the cars. So they start ploughing through the car. With that, Joel grabs hold of the sniper rifle, and he's obviously a better shot than the old man. And he starts taking shots at the driver of the car, in which he's unsuccessful a couple of times, and the car almost hits Ellie because she falls, but he manages to shoot the driver. The driver then turns the wheel, obviously after being shot, and heads straight into a house. The petrol in the tank sort of explodes, and the whole house blows up. There's a big fireball, and then they sort of stop. Joel's still got a sniper rifle, but then Kathleen comes out, and she's like, "Right, Henry, come out. I know where you are. Come out." Henry's like, "Right, I'm going to go out there." He says to them, "I'm going to go out there." And he shouts out like, "I'll go out there, but let the kids go." And Kathleen's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. I know the reason why you like grassed up my brother, but I'm not going to let those kids go, because those kids should have died. Like his brother should have died. He had every right to, like, you can't put one life over another." So she's like, "So you have to come out." So then Henry's like, "Look," says to Ellie, because you know she can trust Ellie's a bit tougher, "Grab my brother and run. I'm going to go out there. You grab my brother and run." So he walks around the car. Kathleen pulls a gun out. He's about to shoot him. Then something happens that I was not expecting at all. The truck suddenly starts to sink into a hole in the ground. The blown up truck we saw earlier starts to sink into a hole in the ground, and it disappears. And they're all standing there looking at it. And then suddenly hundreds of clickers and infected just burst out of this hole. And it happens so fast, and they just start running. And I know when I watched it, I jumped. My partner, my girlfriend Laura, she jumped and was like, "Oh my god!" Like as soon as it happened, like proper heart palpitation moment, jumped as well, because they come tearing out the screen. Basically, if this is a 3D movie, everyone would have crapped themselves, because it was literally, the shot was literally just them, the hole, and then suddenly things coming out. Now they started attacking the militia and anything near them, basically. And then you get this, this is where the heart of the viewer starts pounding, because there's so much going on that screen. There's people like getting attacked by these clickers. There's people shooting at them, trying to fight them off. And you're kind of like thinking, to me, I worked out what happened. Obviously, we know they're attracted by sound, and sound is their sort of thing to pull. So when that truck went down and blew up, all the clickers that were underground, which they would have been chased underground, obviously they were in the tunnel that Joel was in, but there's probably other tunnels spinning off from that. So they've obviously all heard that sound and rushed that sound and come bursting out for the ground and found an opening, because they were probably looking for an opening to get out, because they said they'd chase them down, so obviously trying to find a way out. And they've just burst out, and they've just started massacring everyone there. All the militia are getting attacked. They're trying to shoot back. They're all trying to fire. Joel's up there with the sniper rifle, and he's basically targeting certain clickers to try and help Ellie get away, because Ellie sort of breaks off from Sam and Henry, and she's kind of on her own after the sort of attack. So she's sort of on her own, and she sort of managed to get into a car and like locks herself in the car. and then Joel sort of obviously picking off random clickers and stuff. We then see Ellie look through the car window and she sees Sam and Henry under another car, and infected are trying to sort of pull them out and grab them. Ellie then is in the car and isn't aware that a young child clicker has got in through the back of the car, and so he's sort of coming at her. She manages to open the door and run out and shuts the door and sort of slams the clicker in. And then as the more clickers go for her, Joel's obviously snipering them off. She then gets over to, she sort of has a moment where she's like, do I just run away or do I save my friends? Obviously Sam and Henry. And obviously we know the type of character Ellie is, and Joel's looking down that gun and he knows exactly what she's going to do before she does it. He knows she's going to go and save them, so he instantly sort of turns the gun towards where they are. She runs over and she starts stabbing clickers in the neck to try and pull them off of Henry and Sam, and like gets them out. They go sort of running, and then Kathleen sort of like goes to shoot at Henry again, and suddenly you hear this noise and they all turn to where the hole was, and we get to see our first bloater, which is this huge hulking, like, fungus ravaged clicker. It's a giant version of it. Now, this is where we differ from the game. I mean, a lot of this is different from the game, but the bloater in the game is kind of a creature that gets so big, but it shoots spores out, and they've got rid of the whole spores thing in this version of the story they use. They don't use spores in the TV show. Instead, to me, I was trying to work out what it was, because it's not, because it's literally killing people. It's not, because the whole point of the clickers and the infected is they transfer the spores through the mouth and stuff, through the tendrils, and the bloater's just killing people. So it comes bursting out the hole, and it grabs like Kathleen's like second in command, and it literally just rips his head off in front of her. Like literally, it just like pulls it apart. And it's like bashing and killing people. It's not actually trying to infect people. And I kind of had this theory that they're like ants now. In this version, they're like ants. So you've got like worker ants being the ones that infect, and then you've got the bloater, which is obviously the one that is like a soldier ant. So then I'm thinking, is this show going to differ from the thing, and then we're going to see a queen, like from the infected? Because that wasn't in the games, like that wasn't at all in the games. But I'm wondering, because it did remind me of ants, like with the whole workers and the soldier. Like maybe they'll every so often they'll like breed out a soldier that will help protect the workers and smash through things and stuff. So that was kind of like saying I didn't expect to see in this show, and it kind of is very different from the game, because the game, the bloater had a purpose, which was still to spread the spores, still to spread the infection, but in this it doesn't have that. It just kills people, and I maybe protect the other fungus and stuff. I don't know. It was it's a thought that went into my head during that point. Obviously, let me know in the comments if you agree with me or if you don't agree with me or whatever you think about it anyway, because that was something that sort of played on my mind a little bit after I watched it. So yeah, the bloater comes out, starts like smashing up people. The others run away. As they're sort of trying to get back to where Joel is, Kathleen turns up with a gun, and she's got Joel like in front of her. Sorry, not Joel. Sorry. Kathleen comes out from nowhere, holds a gun at Henry, Sam, and Ellie. Joel is obviously a bit too far, so he can't get the gun down to her anyway. I think his gun had jammed as well at this point. And she's got the gun to Henry. With that, the little girl clicker that was in the back of the car with Ellie suddenly appears and jumps and kills Kathleen, just rips her throat and kills her, and she's gone. And then our heroes all sort of run off. And they sort of like meet up and they sort of keep going. And then we sort of look back at the town, and all of those infected, and they're heading towards the town. So you know they're just going to go and take that town and wipe everyone out in that town that's left. So I kind of wish they'd have kept Federer there, really, I suppose. But anyway, so that's done. So then we move on sort of like, it's like the next day or that night in this little, doing like a flat little room. And they sort of have a moment where we're all sort of like talking, and Ellie and Sam go into the bedroom, supposedly to go to bed. They're playing things and that. Henry goes in to tell them both to go to bed. They lay down. Henry leaves the room, goes to have a chat with Joel about sort of like, and Joel says to him, look, you guys can come with us. Like, don't worry, we'll all go together. We'll stay together as like a group now, because obviously they know that they're good people, all of them. So they're going to stay together and sort of all go to, I think it's Atlanta. I think it's Atlanta anyway. They're going wherever they're going to meet Tommy and stuff, like Joel's brother Tommy. So we're all going to go together. With that, we go back to the bedroom, and Ellie sort of gets up and goes, come on, let's read a bit more comic book before we go to bed. and Sam seems a bit distant. So when Ellie, obviously using that notepad they've got, like writes on it and says to him like, "What's wrong?" And like he says saying along the lines of like, "When like what you scared of?" She's like Scorpion, and she has a little joke with him about not being scared of anything, sort of thing. And then he says, "I'm scared because like when you turn, do you still stay the same person inside and you're a monster on the outside?" She sort of looks at him, then he shows that he's been bit on the leg, and like obviously I've played the game, I knew what was coming, but this time the way this plays out, oh my god. So Ellie's then like, "Oh no, no, look, look." She shows him the bite mark on her arm, and she's like, "My blood's medicine. Like I can help save you." Because Ellie probably does believe this. She's been told that she could be the cure, so she's thinking, "Is it my blood?" So then she cuts herself and rubs it into his blood on his leg, and says to him like it'll be fine. She then says to him, she then promises him that she'll stay up awake with him all night. Like she even makes like a promise. She's doing like signing for promise. And he's like, "Okay then." And then we sort of cut to a few hours later, and Ellie sort of wakes up. It's daytime, and she wakes up. She's fallen asleep in a chair, and she looks over and she sees Sam sitting there. And Sam is, as we know, is deaf. So she sits there. She makes a noise, and she ends up walking round to him, and he's just sitting there staring out the window. And when she like nudges him, obviously he turns around and he's infected and he's all feral and he's all zombie like, and he chases at her and like smashes her through the door, and they both fall to the floor. Joel and Sam jump up. Joel instantly goes to like get the thing, and Sam points the gun at Joel. Says, "Don't do anything," because his brother is now a zombie, but he's like so much to take in. He's probably just woken up himself as well, and he's on top of Ellie and he's trying to kill Ellie, and Joel's like, "No, I need to go," and he's like, he doesn't know what to do because he's got the gun pointing at him. He doesn't know how to do it, and with that, suddenly Sam's like, "No, no, no!" So it's a bit of shouting going on, and he just shoots. Sorry, Sam's attacking Ellie still. There's a bit of shouting going on, and suddenly Henry just shoots at his brother and just shoots him straight in the head and kills his brother. And then sort of Sam collapses to the floor, and you see the blood sort of like start to like sort of bulge out, like start to flow out of him in this like round sort of shapes. It sort of disappears, and Joel then sort of, there's a moment where it sort of, you can tell that Ellie and Joel are so close now because Joel runs to hug her. You can see he runs and goes, "You," and then Sam puts the gun at sorry, I keep saying Sam. Henry then puts the gun at Joel again, and he's like, "What did I do? What did I do?" And he keeps saying it over and again, "What did I do? What do I do? What did I do? What did I do?" And like Joel's just like, "Well, just put the gun down," because I think Joel already knows what's going to happen. And I played the game, so I knew it was going to happen. But my girlfriend said at that point, he's going to shoot himself. And with that, he puts a gun to his head and done. And Ellie's just got this look on her face, and she's just like, "It's too much." And Joel's just like, "You're okay." So then you sort of ends the scene now. And then you see them outside, putting the graves, like digging graves and putting them in the ground. They're sort of filling the graves up on top and that with the dirt. And then Ellie goes off, and she comes back. She's got the little notepad that Sam had round his neck for writing on, and she just writes on it, "I'm sorry," and puts it down. And it's so frigging heartbreaking. And literally, I will admit, I did shed a bit of a tear. And my girlfriend was sitting there just like, "Oh my god, that was like emotional." And like, this show has done it. It's like they'll get to this point where it's sort of like every episode has been something to break your heart. First episode, we get Joel's daughter dying, which really sort of hits the heartstrings. Next episode, Tess dies. Third episode, you've got the whole Bill and Frank love story that ends in like the euthanasia, suicide sort of ending to that. Then we get the next episode that sort of is a two-parter technically that leads into this death now. It's almost like, well, if that one didn't work, this one's going to work. If that death didn't work, this one will work. This show wants to break you, in like emotionally break you, and it's like, this is the one that sort of got me. It's the one that hurt. Even though the thing is, I know what's happening because I've played this game and I know where the story goes. But it's a weird thing. So I've forgotten this whole part of the story. So I played it when it first came out. When I played that the first like week it came out, I played like twice through or three times through. Loved it. Then I sort of didn't really play games again after that. So I'd forgotten this whole part of the story. And seeing this happen, and with the actors they got to play, because these actors nailed this completely, it was amazing. So we've got Ellie now walking away, and she's suddenly become very cold. the sort of jokey Ellie that we had in the first parts of this sort of episode, the first part of the show, just went, and she's just stone, and she's just coming to go. And Joel, you can see this is exactly what Joel didn't want. This is Joel's worst fear when it comes to Ellie happening right now, because he wants that girl to not experience this, to not have this, and it's heart wrenching that he's now had his worst fear come to life. Now she's a product of this world. She's seen enough of this horrible world now to become stone the way he is, and it's like that's what he didn't want to happen, and it's what has happened now. So this is what I obviously Joel is now going to try and do something to change Ellie back to being the fun girl again, but it's such a hard episode to watch. That, I mean, it's a good episode because and it's so much action, it's thrilling, it's adventure, but that ending bit, that last 5 minutes of the show, breaks your heart as a viewer. And also, every episode they've shown so far, at the end of the episode, after the credits, there is a trailer for the next one. There is no trailer at the end of this one. And if there is now, because I know this show went out early because of the Super Bowl being on in America. This show went out on a Friday night in America, which means we got it on like Sunday morning, or sorry, Saturday morning, when normally we get it on Monday morning after it's on American Sunday night. So I watched this Saturday morning, and now I know I've got to wait over a week to watch the next one. So I think I'll be having like the shakes or something by the time we get sort of like Saturday. I'll be shaking. Oh my god, I'm missing it. But again, another phenomenal episode. This show is doing it's better than I expected it to be. A lot better, because most video games sort of, they try and make live action version, whether it be movie or whatever, don't tend to work well. This is the best one that's ever happened. This is the most like faithful to the game storyline. But they've also, it's like they've taken what the game had, and they've had to take away a lot of the action, because you can't have him walking around shooting people every 5 seconds. But what they've done is they've manipulated that into character. They've gone back to the character, which is the thing The Last of Us did better than any video game has ever done anyway, was build character. They've gone back a bit, and they're building these characters even more intensely and more detailed, so you care so much about them. We're only 4 episodes in, and I already care so much that these characters are going to get hurt. Like, not being funny, like, you watch The Walking Dead, and when Glenn died, that was heartbreaking. Sorry for a spoiler if you haven't watched Walking Dead, but Glenn does die. So when Glenn died and the way he died is heartbreaking, but it took us like 6 seasons to get to that. My 5, I can't remember what season it was, but it was a good few seasons to get to the point where we cared that much about Glenn that when he did go, it was heartbreaking. This, I mean, we saw Henry and Sam for pretty much just one episode for I suppose about 50 minutes. We've known those characters. If you count the last couple of minutes on the end of the next episode and this episode, we've only probably for an hour. So we've known him for an hour, and we get this much heartbreak at the end of this, because those actors are so skillful and the writers of this show are so good that they actually made you give a shit really early on and care so much, and that's why it broke people's hearts. Why my girlfriend, she was like teary. I was a bit teary. I got the old tears like in the corner of the eye coming out. It was so well done, and so you care so much. And being a parent, I think, helps me identify with these struggles and these things. Like, what would I do in this situation? What the hell am I going to do if this happened? And it's a emotional roller coaster, this TV show. It took me from being the excitement and thrilling and sort of danger part to heartbreak within about 4 minutes, and the show just gets better and better. So I can't wait for the next one. Again, I have no clue what's coming in the next one. We've now seen Bloaters, so we've seen all the different versions of the Clickers, unless they are going to do what I think they might do, which is add a Queen, maybe, which would be something that isn't in the TV show. But to me, it's just that I can't see the point of a blower other than it being a soldier. And if they've got a structure where they've got workers and soldiers, it makes sense that there's a Queen, because I said in the game the blower had the purpose of spreading spores by like exploding them out. That's why it's called a blower, because it like spores and stuff. And in this show, it doesn't have that. The only purpose it seemed to have during that battle scene was killing and protecting the other workers, just like a soldier ant would. When they have the line, if you ever see like ant documentaries, they've got a line of ants carrying food back forward, and the soldiers will be on the outside that line, like protecting the ants from like incoming predators. yeah, Leafco ants. If you ever want to watch some good ant stuff, watch some like the Attenborough documentaries and stuff. And there's a whole Attenborough documentary about ants, which is really cool. Definitely worth watching if you're sort of into that sort of thing. He also did a thing about these fungus as well from this show. He does a bit of that on one of the, I think it's the Planet Earth TV show series. He actually does a bit on the fungus from this show. But anyway, I hope you really liked it. Let me know what you think of the bloaters and stuff like that. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If it broke your heart the way it did mine. Definitely the most heart-wrenching one on the show. And I do think this show is out there to break our hearts as well as make it enjoy it. Now, onwards to the next one. Obviously, Tommy's got to be next. That's the next stage of the journey. It has to be Tommy. So that's going to be an interesting one. So I'll see you guys next week for another one. And enjoy yourselves for the rest of the week. Bye.